Iconic: The Economy of Certainty: An Introduction to the Typology of Islamic Legal Theory by Aron Zysow, Harvard University, 1984, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Chapter 1: The Authentication of Prophetic Traditions. 1. The Concurrent Tradition. The conditions of concurrency. The Muslim jurist has the task of interpreting the divinely revealed legal texts and of extending their application by analogy. It is clear, however, that before he can undertake these tasks, the jurist must have access to the legal information furnished by revelation. The veracity of the miracle-wielding prophet, at least in his function of laying down the law, is demonstrated by the theologian and is assumed by the legal theorist. Generally speaking, no distinction is made between the validity of the Quran and the prophetic utterances which are non-Quranic. The division between the two is drawn from the point of view of authenticity. The Quran is identifiable whole, being an identifiable whole of absolutely certain authenticity, as opposed to the Sunnah, where the question of authenticity is of serious concern. Common usul doctrine recognizes two classes of transmitted information. One consists of concurrent reports, al-khabar al-mutawatir, and the other of unit reports, al-khabar wahid, khabar al-wahid, plural akhbar al-ahad. Apologies, no Arabic text given. That is, those reports which fall short of the dissemination of the first category. The distinction is an epistemological one, it being claimed that if enough people under certain circumstances tell us something, we can have certain knowledge of the veracity of their report, whereas unit reporters cannot give us this certainty. This distinction is fundamental to the usul treatment of hadith, which is often found under the heading of akhbar, reports. The hadith takes the form of a report to the effect that various people, one from another, have transmitted a saying or action of the Prophet. The final transmitter is the reporter. The rest of the isnad, chain of transmitters, and the matan, texts, are the report. One should note that the Quran itself was transmitted in precisely the same fashion. Its transmission is equivalent to a report that the Prophet spoke the text of the Quran in the name of God. That the authenticity of the Quran is not treated in the usul text is, however, not surprising. For the controversies about the Quran were, as Ibn Hazm notes, the province of the theologian. A lengthy quote from Ibn Hazm here. There is no disagreement among the sects belonging to Islam, Ahl Sunnah, the Mu'tazilis, the Murji'ah, and the Zaydiyah, as to the obligation of accepting the Quran, nor as to the fact that the Quran is the very same one which is recited among us. Only a group of extreme Rafidites have disputed this, and are thereby unbelievers, heretics according to all of the people of Islam. It is not with them that we are holding discourse in this work, but only with the people of our religion, our millah. For we have already established the falsity of the other religions in our book Al-Fisal. It's also pronounced Faslu fi Milali wa Nahal. Milali wa Nihal. Not An-Nahl. Nahl is a bee. And Nihal is sects and religions. But although the question of the authenticity of the Quran is raised only cursorily in the usul texts, one must keep in mind that the Quran is, as it were, the matan of the mutawatir report, and that any attack on the mutawatir report is at the same time an attack upon the Quran. In general, one can say that the Hanafi treatment of hadith has two aims: to admit enough sound material for analogy to function, and to exclude materials that would obliterate the outlines of the legal system. The secure basis is comprised of those hadith which are mutawatir and mashhur, widespread, an intermediate category recognized by most Hanafi scholars. Traditions whose mode of transmission cannot entail certainty, the akhbar al-ahad, are measured against these sources in addition to being subjected to other tests. Only after they meet these criteria can they form the basis for action, amal, that is, constitute a legal norm. This distinction between sources which are of absolute certainty, certain authenticity, and those that are merely presumptive is a characteristic feature of the formalist legal systems of Islam. The Mutawatir report figures as a source of certain knowledge throughout Islamic thought, and a study of its various uses could well form the subject of a separate treatise. Our discussion will center upon two issues: what condition must be met for the report to be mutawatir, and which of the two sorts of certain knowledge does it yield daruri, immediate, or muktasab, acquired. It will emerge that the Hanafis were apparently unanimous in holding that the knowledge yielded by the mutawatir tradition was daruri, immediate, in spite of the spread of the muktasab, the acquired position, in other circles. We shall also see what a number of prominent Hanafi scholars stipulated conditions for the mutawatir tradition, which were peculiar to themselves. As the standard definition of a mutawatir report, we may take that which states that it is the report of something sensible by a group of people whom experience precludes from acting in concert. The mutawatir report is one transmitted by enough people to eliminate the possibility of their concurrence stemming from chance or collusion. The source of knowledge must reside in the senses because sense knowledge is free from obscurity or confusion. It is not liable to the errors of reasoning. Thus the unbelievers can report in all their numbers that God is one of three without this producing certain knowledge. The basis for tawatur knowledge is experience, ada, not reason, for reason does not exclude the possibility of any number of people lying. The possibility is only one based on experience. Note here, ada also means custom. Adat, ada. The precise number of those who constitute a tawatur quorum was, however, a matter of uncertainty. Various numbers were suggested, usually those that figured prominently in Quranic stories or in early Islamic history. It was argued that since even when 4 men testified to fornication, the judge must still investigate their moral credentials, one could be sure that the 4 fell short of the number. Ghazali discusses the difficulties involved, and we'll conclude here with this extensive quote from Ghazali. Quote, if we assume the absence of concomitant circumstances, the minimum number by which daruri, in this case best rendered irresistible knowledge takes place, is known to God, but not to us. We have no way to know, for we do not know when we first came to know of the existence of Mecca, or al-Shafi'i, or the prophets by means of concurrent reports reaching us. We do not know whether it was the first of the 100th report or the 200th, and we cannot easily test this even if we try. The way to try it is to observe when a man is killed in the marketplace, for example. A number of people leave the scene and come to us with a report of his murder. The first statement arouses a presumption of truth. The second and the third confirm it. It keeps growing in confirmation until it becomes daruri. We are unable to cause ourselves to doubt it. Now, if one could conceive of being aware of the instant in which this knowledge became daruri and of retaining the number of the informants, then knowledge of this matter would be possible. But grasping this instant is difficult, for the force of our conviction increases subtly in the way as the intellect of a discerning youth, sabi mumayyiz, increases until he becomes legally responsible, or in the same way that the light of dawn increases until it is full. For this reason, this number remains obscure, and its grasp is beyond human powers. As to the fixing of the number at 40 on the basis of the quorum of the Friday noon prayer, or at 70 on the basis of the Quranic verse 7:155, and Moses chose 70 men of his people to meet us, or at the number of people of Badr, more than 300. These numbers are all arbitrary and inappropriate to the question under discussion. Their mutual contradiction is enough to show that they are groundless. Thus, there is no way to fix the number. From the existence of daruri knowledge, we infer that the full number, known only to God, has concurred in the report. End of Ghazali's words. Stay tuned for the remainder of chapter 1.